Would you allow any stranger to look at your photographs, your online banking statement, or some of the sensitive information that you store online, such as your healthcare data and your history of your medical records? I see some of you shaking your heads right now, but I guess most of us are already doing it right now. There's a saying that your mobile phone knows you better than your spouse. If I can be audacious enough to propose this, is that the staff working at the online service providers know you better than you know yourself. In 2010, a site reliability engineer from Google was caught spying on at least 4 teenagers. Well, that's a big concern, but what's a bigger concern was that he wasn't caught by technology, he wasn't caught by any technical automation, he was caught by the parents reporting to Google about what he has done. In the news report, it was also said that the extent of the damage of his spying on people through the abuse of his system administrator rights was unclear. Now, this is a big problem for us, because at the crux of this problem, it just exposes a bigger problem, the lack of control over our data once we upload it online. Now, how do we solve this problem? How do we know what happens behind the scene? Now, a group of scientists, computer scientists, and IT companies in New Zealand are currently working on it through a government-funded, an MBIE-funded grant called Stratus. In Stratus, we like to say and propose that data control can be returned if we control 3 elements of data control. Number 1, to know. Number 2, to act upon. After you know that something has gone wrong, you can actually roll back, or you can bring someone to account for some of the wrong things that they have done. And number 3, to preserve the privacy of our data. With all these 3 elements, we stand a chance to create something what we call a kill switch. A kill switch would allow you to have some absolute control over your data, and at the same time, this kill switch could actually tell you what's happening, and you can stop someone from accessing your data if you don't want them to. Now, Jennifer Lawrence and many other celebrities in the 2014 iCloud hack would have wanted such a kill switch. This kill switch would have stopped the spread of their sensitive information and would have already benefited them to control the damage that was brought to them. Now, this kill switch is primarily based on a few elements, and I'm going to show you a few examples from the group that we have at the University of Waikato, working really hard to solve some of these problems, to know and to act. To know and to act is on this scientific problem called provenance. Now, provenance is the derivation history of data. If you know the history of your entire data, you can act upon it and you bring someone to account for. But how do we act beyond that? Now, that is the crux of the question. In this video, I'm going to show you an example of how a CCTV that we created called Provenance Logger, or Progger, that looks inside the computer, looks inside the system, is able to expose a system administrator from abusing the system administrator rights. Over here, on the top right-hand screen, you see Alice, and as with every security example, you will have Bob, and Bob is on the bottom right corner of the screen. Bob is entering the annual bonus information, and Alice, working under him, didn't have a good relationship with him, had this sixth sense that she probably isn't getting any bonus. So she's trying to get in, but her permission was denied. And hence, she used her system administrator rights to access the data. And when she's doing that, the screen on the left shows us the Progger logs. Progger was able to expose all these actions and to record all these actions to prove that she has actually abused the system administrator rights. Now, this has exposed the abuse of system administrators' rights or the malicious insiders triggered by human events. what about the vast majority of the cybersecurity incidents nowadays, which are triggered by software events? We have worked on a solution by putting Progger into machines to check and to record malicious software happening within the computer. Over here, you see an example that we're actually studying right now. It's the malware Locky. Locky is part of a family of ransomware that locks up your computer and only unlocks it if you pay the ransom. Now, Locky is very topical in Australia and New Zealand because it is the highest earning malware that is happening right now. And it is our job to stop it. And the way to stop it is to understand the enemy, to understand and see what happens within the system. A lot of the systems out there and a lot of the cybersecurity capability are monitoring things that are flying outside the computers or across the networks, but very few of them are actually looking within the system. I'm sure some of you will be thinking, wow, how am I going to make sense of this? You know, this is not an eyesight test. Yeah. So what should we do? We created a visualization to look at what happens within the computer. Now, this visualization, we call it Visual Progger, allows you to look inside the computer right now. What we can see from the logs is that Locky was trying to study the entire system, how many folders and directories and also the files are inside there. What files are your Word documents, your pictures, your spreadsheets? And it's trying to study everything, identifying them so that they can lock them up. And once they lock them up, the visualization shows you that it's actually in red. And we can zoom into the files and look at what has actually happened. Now, this gives us a little bit of control, right, in both the human and the automated sense. I have covered provenance, and provenance allows you to know and to act upon your data control elements. Now we move on to the final one, which is about preservation of privacy. When we actually look at it from a computer science point of view, we actually are kind of suspicious every time someone tells us, you know, especially a cloud service provider tells us that everything is encrypted and all is safe. Because fundamentally, if you want to process the data, if you want a 1 + 1 = 2, the computer has to know that it's 1 + 1 = 2. Now, this is a big problem because none of the computers right now are empowered to do things fully encrypted. If it's encrypted information, you can never, ever process the data. So the key to solve that was actually unlocked in 2009 by a group of scientists in Stanford and IBM. It's called Homemorphic Encryption. Homomorphic encryption allows you to process data securely without decrypting the encrypted data. So this means it's like a bank teller. You know, you go to the bank, and the bank might be your friend, right? And you go to the bank, and you tell them, can you update the bank balance for me? Here's $10 more. And they can update the thing, and with some magic, they can update your bank balance and give you the final result, and only you can see it. But your nosy friend can never see the bank balance. Yeah. So this is the crux of homomorphic encryption. But what's the problem? 2009 until now, there has some issues. And the issue is with the practicality of homomorphic encryption techniques right now. So the race is on. The race is on to solve this problem. For example, 1 kilobyte of data right now takes about 15 minutes to encrypt homomorphically. Now imagine you're uploading a photograph right now. There'll be a lot of coffees to drink, you know, when you're waiting for this photograph to upload. The scientists have now thought about how about, you know, we take a step back and try not to be too ambitious. Instead of doing a full homomorphic encryption, let's do a partial homomorphic encryption. How do we do a partial one? We focus just on one math operation. For example, addition, subtraction, multiplication, or divide, just one of them. In a democratic society, you will find an operation that happens every 3 or 4 years, and that is voting. Well, if you use subtraction, for voting, then you probably are living under a dictator. So we're going to show you addition, right, through an example over here. In this example, we have 8 students voting yes or no to paid parking on campus. And this topic, allows us to bring out, but eventually we got 4 votes that says yes and 4 votes that say no. It's very politically correct. Now, what's important about this is that the voting stations were not able to see who voted for what. And what's more empowering, returning control to the voters, was that every voter was able to mathematically prove that their vote was counted, thus enabling control back to the users. I've shown you many examples which prove to proliferate business when we return control of data to users. And in 1981, IBM, together with Microsoft's operating systems, empowered the world with control of their computation, of their productivity, with the microcomputer movement. Everyone has a personal computer in their home or their offices. And security is now at the cusp of this right now. 36 years later, I believe that we have a strong chance to move and change the landscape. We cannot rely on someone else anymore. We have to start a personal cybersecurity revolution, returning control of data to users. Thank you.